Hi everyone, welcome back to the Stitches and Scribbles channel. My name is Erin and I've got a crochet tutorial for you today. We're making this piece. Right now it looks kind of like a neck warmer. You could wear it as a little cowl, but it is actually a hat. Up at the top there's a drawstring that you just pull tight, tie in a bow, and it makes a cute little hat. You can also adjust the top of the drawstring to allow for a ponytail or a bun to fit through the top of the hat. This is worked in a rectangular construction with no increases or decreases, so it's a great way to practice some pretty simple crochet stitches. You're going to be learning how to do back loops, single crochet, as well as the linen stitch for the main section of the hat. Let's jump right into the tutorial. All right, to start our hat, we're going to need a crochet hook. I'm using a 4mm crochet hook because I want something that's a little bit small for the yarn that I'm using to give me a tighter gauge. The yarn I'm using today is I Love This Yarn by Hobby Lobby. The one I'm working with is in the color Ivory. I wanted a nice neutral color to work on this hat. We're going to be making this hat flat, so there will be no joining in the round, which means also that we're not going to be doing any increases or decreases, but our hat band is going to be worked one direction and then the rest of the hat worked in another direction. Let's start with the hat band. We're going to do a slip knot first. Insert your hook, and you want to do as many chain stitches as you want for the width of your brim. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I like a slightly wider brim, so I went with 10 stitches. Now we're going to be doing single crochets across. I'm going to add one extra stitch. That's going to be my turning chain that I'm going to do after each row. So now I insert my hook, pull through 1, insert and pull through 2. We're just going to single crochet across. To single crochet, you insert your hook, wrap and pull through once, wrap and pull through both. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 to finish it off. There's one row. Now we're going to turn our work. I'm going to chain 1 in between rows. You don't have to chain 1 between rows. I prefer to do it because it gives you a cleaner edge. Now we're going to be doing single crochet in the back loops only. This is going to give us a slightly ribbed texture. So normally when crocheting, you would insert your hook under both legs of that kind of V shape at the top of the stitch. Instead of going through both, we're only going to go through the back one and then do your single crochet as normal. So there's 1. Now I'm going to find the back loop, 2, continue in the back loops all the way across. Okay. Now we've done 2 rows. For our third row, we're going to do in the back loops again, and doing it in the back loop is what gives us this nice little ridge in between, and eventually that's going to kind of look like ribbed stitches. So here we go again. I did a chain stitch to turn and then started doing my single crochets in the back loop only. There's our third row done. And again, you can see that ridge has formed. That's going to give us kind of our ribbed texture. You're going to continue doing single crochet in the back loop until your ribbing is as long as you want to fit around your head. So almost like a headband length. I'm going to go ahead and finish those. You can pause the video here, do your rows, and then come back for the next step. All right, I have finished my hat band, and the way I measured this was I put it around my head like a headband, and I wanted it to be wide enough so that it fit only when stretched slightly. I didn't want it to be like totally stretched in order to fit, just a little bit in order to get the right size. But now we're going to start working in the other direction in order to make kind of the main section of the hat. So your hat band should look like this with your hook in the corner. And we're going to start working across the top of the hat band to make the body of the hat. So I'm going to start with a slip stitch for the end of my row. And I'm going to do a single crochet right in the beginning. Now, I am going to be doing the moss stitch for this piece. If you want to use a different stitch, you totally can. For inserting stitches in a plain stitch, you would insert a stitch in each ridge and in each valley of that ribbed section. Because I'm doing moss stitch or linen stitch, I'm actually going to be skipping over the ridges. So I did one single crochet. I'm going to chain one, skip over the ridge, single crochet in the valley. Chain one, skip the ridge, single crochet in the valley. And I'm going to continue that all the way across. Again, if you were doing a different stitch, you would want to insert in both the ridges and the valleys, but since I'm skipping every other stitch, I don't need to do that. And again, you're just going to continue this all the way across. But since that row is quite long, I'm going to finish it off camera. You can pause and finish your stitches and come back for the next row. All right, I'm now almost at the end of the row, so I'm going to end with one more slip stitch and single crochet kind of just in that final corner edge. Then I've completed the first row of the main section of the hat. For the second row, you're basically going to put a single crochet into each of your chain one spaces and do a chain one over your single crochets. I'm going to start with a slip stitch, not a slip stitch, a chain stitch for the edge because I always do. And just for the very edge, I'm going to single crochet in the first stitch. You're always going to have single crochets stacked on top of each other for the edges, just because it's a little easier to keep track. My next spot is a chain stitch, so I'm going to insert my hook and do a single crochet, and then chain one to skip over the next single crochet. Again, placing a single crochet in the chain one space, do a chain one, skip the next single crochet, and insert your hook into the chain space for your next single crochet. So you're kind of making this like alternating pattern where all of your single crochets are in the chain stitches from the previous row and your chain stitches are over the previous single crochets. I'm going to go ahead and finish my row off camera and I'll show you what to do at the end of the row. All right, I have gone almost to the end of the row. I did a single crochet in the last chain space, and since I'm now out of chain spaces, we're going to single crochet in the final stitch to have that be our kind of border stitch. Then turn your work. I'm going to chain one between rows just like I have been. Okay, we're going to start with a single crochet in that first stitch. You will always start with a single crochet in the first stitch. If the stitch right after is a chain stitch, you'll single crochet in the chain stitch, but on this row, the first stitch after is a single crochet. So we're going to start with a chain stitch and then single crochet in the previous chain stitch. And just repeat your pattern as we've been doing. So you will basically alternate between starting a row with 2 single crochets in a row or starting with 1 single crochet and then going into your chain stitch, because we're making that kind of mesh fabric. And you just kind of continue this pattern until the hat is the height that you want. I'll check in a few minutes once I've gotten a few rows completed so you can kind of see what the stitch pattern looks like as it gets worked up. This is what it looks like with a few more rows crocheted up. And something I wanted to say about the edges of the rows is whatever you start with, whether it's 1 single crochet or 2 single crochets, you're going to be doing the same at the end of the row because of how we had it set up. And I think I forgot to say that in the last clip. But this is what it's looking like so far. I love this stitch because it almost looks like a knit fabric or a woven fabric. It gives a really clean surface. It does have a little bit of stretch to it, and when you stretch it, you do see the mesh stitches. But if you stretch this way, you don't really see the mesh. It's only if you stretch vertically. But I think it's a really cool stitch pattern for something like a hat because it's still very warm and fairly dense. And I think it has nice contrast with the rib stitch at the bottom. So just keep going until you have the height you want for your hat. For the final row, we want to use a slightly different stitch just because you want a little bit more height to allow for your drawstring to go through. So I'm going to start by chaining 2. This replaces my chain 1 at the beginning of the row. And I'm going to do a half double crochet in the first stitch. Like that. I'm also going to half double crochet in the second stitch in order to keep it in pattern. So I'm basically going to do what I was doing before, but I'm using a half double crochet instead of a single crochet. This gives a little bit more height. Oops, I think that was a double crochet by accident. That one might have been too. Let's make sure it's a half double. Like that. It gives you just slightly more height to that stitch, which allows for a drawstring to go through those holes, making a nice little track for the drawstring. Go ahead and do this all the way across for your final row, and then we will sew up the hat. Alright, I finished that final row with a nice long end. Now I'm just going to fold my ends together and thread the end of the yarn into a darning needle. And I'm just going to sew up this seam down the middle. You can use whatever stitch you want. I'm going to go with a mattress stitch, so I'm going through both layers going one way and then through both layers going the other way. When I say both layers, I mean both sides of the stitch that's on the edge. So it'll be kind of like a herringbone looking stitch running down, but this stitch becomes pretty invisible once it's finished up, which is really nice and gives you a nice clean finish. You could also single crochet both edges together, but that creates a bulkier join than what I want. It also means that you would lose some circumference from your hat because of the space that those stitches take up, whereas you don't lose very much with a mattress stitch. So I'm just going to keep doing that all the way down, and then I'll show you what it looks like at the end. Got the hat all sewn up now, and I created a chain stitch cord. You just want to make sure that the drawstring cord is a little bit longer than the width of your hat when it's doubled, because you still want to be able to tie a little bow with it if it's all the way open. From there, I'm just taking the long end that I kept from when I made it and putting that onto a darning needle. And I'm going to weave this back and forth through that stitch pattern that we made and pull the drawstring through and just continue that all the way around. And here is the finished product. I have the drawstring pulled tight right now, but you can again open it all the way up to have a neck warmer or cowl, or you can adjust the top opening to allow for a ponytail or a bun. Obviously, I'm not doing any ponytails anytime soon, so this is not something that I will be wearing this winter, although I have made a similar one in the past that I got a lot of wear out of. But this is my kind of go-to gift right now for the holiday season. It only takes a couple hours. Today working on this, it took me about 4 hours to make the hat, and I did pretty much do it in one sitting, which was really great. But it's a great, fairly quick gift that you can make for family and friends. I am personally making this for someone who's a new mom and plans on going on lots of stroller walks with baby, so I thought having something warm and cozy to wear for that would be absolutely perfect. But that's it for the tutorial. I am planning on doing a knit version sometime soon, so be on the lookout for that if you knit as well, or if you know people who are knitters who are going to want to make something very similar. But that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had fun making your hat. And if you like what you saw today, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. I post videos about once a week when I have time. And I do lots of crafty and book related content right here on YouTube. And if you want to follow me on another social media site, that information is in the description box. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye everyone!